As soon as it got light, I could hear the fish showing out over sort of in the area in front of me. As soon as the sun just broke the horizon, it was a lovely, lovely warm morning. It just, all hell broke loose. It's exactly what I try and achieve when I'm bait fishing. I've not really fished on mallard much. I've only really ever done a couple of nights here and there, and I've nicked a couple of fish, but never really been on them and had that many fish. It's a long old journey for me to get down onto the complex, and to be honest, with Swan just across the road, with all the big fish in there, that's my favourite venue. I've fished that for quite a few years and had some great success out of there. And it's always hard to drive up here in neglect Swan, but this week I thought I've been struggling a bit on Swan. I've been nicking the odd fish here and there. It's been a quiet spring, so I thought I'd come down and give it a go the other side of the road. I really fancy just a bit of a tear up really, see if I can get on a few fish and do a bit of bait fishing. Absolutely cracking little scaly one. Tanked off well spotting, so he was well on the bait. That's the advantages of fishing free on a spot. You've got sort of free hook baits, free chances of catching a feeding fish, and when you get them going like I've got them going at the moment, bites can just come thick and fast. Knowing that there's a lot of fish in the lake, I do tend to always put free rods on a spot. I think the way I try to do it is I try to, rather than put a kilo over here, a kilo over here and a kilo over here and fish 3 different spots, I spend quite a while plumbing to find the best spot, but I'd rather put 3 kilos on one spot than 1 kilo on 3 spots. It's a big lake, and when the fish come on you, they're in the area and you need to try and concentrate them down onto the baited area. Well, it's been absolutely mental this morning. Nice, steady, regular flurry of action, and this absolute pristine common has just slipped up. So scale perfect, immaculate. Most of them are in here. They're absolute beauties, and the mirrors are lovely as well. I'm trying to build up a hit of fish. I'm not fishing for one fish at a time or one fish. You know, I'm fishing for maybe a dozen fish, you know, in the morning. That's what I'm trying to achieve. So by concentrating the bait in the peg in an area that I think they're going to feed in and fishing 3 rods on the spots, that offers me the best possible opportunity of getting a big hit of carp. I quite often think that if you had 1 rod on a spot with a kilo of bait, if that rig's not quite presented properly, the fish could come in and clean out the bait, you've not had a bite, and that's the spot out of the 3 that they're feeding on, and you're just going to miss out. You're not going to have a bite and you've missed an opportunity. You're not going to be topping up because you haven't had a bite. There's no way that you can get carp competing over a bed of bait with 3 rods on it and not be getting a bite. Well, they're really on the bait now. Bites are coming thick and fast. I've had this bite while spodding. Literally, I was just retrieving a spod and it's tanked off. It feels like a good fish actually. And you've really got to make the most of these opportunities because it can be just a short feeding spell. I mean, it's probably been a couple of hours now and I've had a lot of bites in those last couple of hours. So it's all about being efficient, keeping the bait going in, fishing accurately. And those fish are stacking up at the moment and they're really, really having it on that spot. Accuracy is the key thing for me when it comes to fishing on the spot. So if the spot is 15.5 or 15.25 wraps, then you want to fish, you want to clip up at 15.25 wraps. You know, you don't want to then say, oh, I'll just round it up to 16 wraps because it might be a bit weedy a bit further. You know, wherever the spot is, you need to be plumb on it. Yes. Well, this one is a proper scaly banger. They're unbelievable, these fish in here. You know, so many of them have got big plated scales all over them, and that's exactly how I love my mirrors. What an incredible venue. This one fell again to the Ronnie rig. Tried, tested, trusted. It's this one come to a double plastic corn pink, this one. I've been chopping and changing between hook baits. I've had a few on Northern Specials, yellows and pinks, and a couple on yellow plastic corn and this one on a pink. To be honest, they're on the bait and it doesn't really matter at the moment. They're having everything that I'm chucking at them, but they're nailed every time on the Ronnie Rigs. We may be on a high stock venue with a lot of fish, but it's far from easy, you know. When you get it right, you can have a lot of fish, but even that in itself requires a lot of hard work. My action started sort of in the middle of the night, and at first it was fairly slow. It was every couple of hours, so I was up all night, and you know, once I had a bite I was topping up, and by the time you get the rigs back out on the spot, bit of bait over the top, just get in the sleeping bag, just start to doze off, and then the rod was going again. And by constantly topping up and keeping the fish interested in getting more and more fish into the swim, the action kind of got faster and faster. And to be honest, from sort of first light onwards, that was when it really started to kick off. So I think I had possibly 3 in darkness, mainly smaller fish. And then just as it got light, you know, the rods were ripping off fairly consistently. And it got to the point that I started catching them whilst I was topping up and whilst I was spomming. So I was putting like 3 or 4 spoms out and then the rod was ripping off. So they were clearly on the bait. And as I said, it's hard work, you know. If I just had a break for an hour or just stopped working hard at it, stopped putting bait in, those fish could quite easily have just moved off. Certainly on a big lake like this, I've seen it a number of times, you know. You stop putting in the effort and stop putting in the bait and the fish will just drift off and they're gone, and you've missed your opportunity. So yeah, it was a lot of hard work this morning to build up a lot of fish, and but it was, you know, it was really rewarding. I had a lovely mint common that you know, put up a hell of a battle, and that was lovely. But to be honest, it's the mirrors that do it for me. I had a lovely 24-pound mirror with big golden scales on it, and they're the ones that I love catching. Well, we've got another fish on. I noticed I'd had sort of 4 bites in a row, all on the middle rod, and that worries me a little bit, because you need to be, with 3 on the spot, you should really be catching on all 3. So if I ever get to the situation where I keep catching or keep getting bites on just 1 rod, I know all of them should be going. So I've rechucked all 3 rods basically, and it went a little bit quiet. I probably went half an hour without a bite. So I decided, I hadn't put any bait in since the last fish, so I put probably about another 10 spoms of bait out there just to sort of, you know, entice them to get their heads down and have a bit of a feed. But it's getting quite late in the morning, and I sort of think that it's going to tail off now. But that just, the rechuck and a bit of fresh bait, sort of 20 minutes later and we're away, so fish on. When it comes to rigs, I know the Ronnie Rig's been highly publicised in recent years, and it's grown in popularity. But there's a couple of reasons why I love using it and why I've probably used it almost exclusively for all my bottom fishing for the last probably 14-15 months now. First of all, it's just a mint presentation with the double corn or a little Northern Special pop-up. You can make it just so that it balances and slowly sits down and is always going to sit on any debris on the bottom, and your hook bait's just the length of the hook off the deck, so maybe an inch and a half off the deck, which is absolutely perfect for the type of fishing I do. The fish are always going to be able to find and pick up that hook bait. Secondly, the components are reliable. At the end of the day, all I want to do is convert as many bites into putting fish on the bank as possible. And I've tried loads of different patterns of hooks over the years with mixed results. And in this instance, I use a cryogen curve shank. Again, been using them for 14 months on the Ronnie Rig, and I can probably count on one hand how many fish I've lost since I started using them. They're mega sharp straight out of the packet, and they don't really go blunt. So for instance, so far this morning, I had loads and loads of actions, and I actually only took 1 rig off and changed it over because it had gone blunt. So I can get a lot of fish out of 1 rig. You can tie them yourself, they're really easy, but they also come ready-made, and the ready-made ones are exactly identical to the Ronnie Rigs I use and how I use them. To attach the boom section to the Ronnie Rig itself, all I do is a simple overhand knot. With the braided hook link, the knot's nice and strong, and you get that little bit of a loop just to give it that little bit of a hinge. When it comes to the length of the rig, I normally sort of start at about 6 or 7 inches basically. And if I think it's a softer bottom or a little bit of weed around, then I'll just lengthen it up just to make sure that hook bait comes down and sits on top of the weed. But 9 times out of 10 I'm fishing on a clear spot, so 6 or 7 inches is fairly short, but that's how I fish it. One mistake I see a lot of people make is they constantly spodding bait when they're not catching, whereas what I always do is I'll put a bit of bait in at the start and then you build the peg. When you get a bite, you top up. When you get another bite, you put a bit more bait in. And if you're getting lots of bites, you can afford to put more and more bait in. And it just kind of builds up and builds up. And the more bites you're getting, the more bait you're putting in, and the more regular the bait goes in, and the more the fish sort of get on it really. They hear the spom going in, they know it's food coming into the swim, and it just draws more and more fish in, and the action just gets better and better and better, as we've seen this morning. Well, these mirrors are really something else in here. Just love the scale patterns on them. They're really, really unique. And most of them are like this as well, so beautiful fish. And it's all about just making the most of those feeding spells, you know. After every bite, I'm just trickling bait in and they just keep coming. Well, we're up bright and early with another fish on. Well, to be honest, I've got an hour's sleep last night. It's been a bit hectic for me. I think I had my first bite, I rolled into bed about 10 o'clock, had the first bite at 11, and I've had pretty much a bite at least every hour since then. So we're coming towards the end of the session now. I've still got 3 or 4 hours left, but I think probably got another hour of bite time. I think I've had quite a few fish. It sort of starts at 11 at night, and then from first light onwards is when it's been going mad, and I've had a load more fish this morning. At the moment, there's still time for a few more, but I'm on 20 carp now. I've had 20 carp and a nice little tench as well to go with it, and I've not lost a fish. So 21 bites, 21 fish landed, and it's just a testament and reiterates the fact that the rig I use, the hooks I use, the components I use are just reliable. I'd hardly ever, touch wood, lose fish on them, and that's why I use the rig.